Nurse.org and Major League Sports teams are honoring nurses with discounted game tickets and once-in-a-lifetime experiences. From throwing the first pitch to riding the Zamboni to on-court recognition, join the fun. Visit nurse.org/nurse night to find a nurse appreciation event near you and grab your discounted tickets today.
The Love and Leary Podcast is where nursing leadership, innovation, and real talk come together. Hosted by nurse leaders Marion Leary
and Rebecca Love.
The show dives into the issues that matter most to today's nursing community.
Each episode features candid conversations, expert insights, and bold perspectives on healthcare, leadership, advocacy, and the future of nursing. Whether you're a clinical nurse, nurse leader, or another healthcare changemaker, Love and Leary offers thoughtful dialogue and practical takeaways to inform, inspire, and empower nurses at every stage of our careers.
Hello, Rebecca. I am so excited for our conversation today. We have Renee Thompson on, who I was fortunate enough to be a guest on her podcast earlier this year, and I'm thrilled that she has agreed to talk to us for the Love and Leary podcast. For those who don't know, Renee is the CEO and founder of the Healthy Workforce Institute and has focused her 30-year career on bullying. I have so many questions for you, Renee. But first, why don't you give us a little background about the work that you've done over those 3 decades and how you found your way into this space and to creating the Healthy Workforce Institute?
I would be happy to. As you said, I've been a nurse for, I think now it's either 32 or 33 years. And I always say I've done pretty much everything you could do as a nurse. You know, obviously at the bedside, I worked for a managed care company. I worked in home care. I was an educator. I was a frontline manager of a very large med-surg telemetry unit. And then I ended up in a corporate role for a large health system. And I was responsible basically for professional development of about 10,000 nurses. And I built nurse residency programs and preceptor programs and student nurse internship programs, you know, certification, advanced degrees, and all of that. So I was talking to a lot of nurses. And every time I would get in front of them, all they wanted to talk about was how badly the other nurses treated them. And you know what? It reminded me of my own experiences. And I had a moment where I realized, you know what? It didn't matter where I worked. And I worked for a lot of different organizations or what role I had. I swear there was always someone who made it their mission to make my life difficult. And I thought, working in healthcare is hard enough without worrying about your coworkers making it harder. And it was a moment where I said, that's it. Enough is enough. We've been talking about bullying and incivility for a century, but what are we doing about it? So I quit a good job that I really liked to start, you know, a company dedicated to doing something about this problem. And, you know, that was 16 years ago. Now it started as me. Now we're the Healthy Workforce Institute, and there's 15 or 16 of us now. We have a core team, and then we have speakers and consultants. And yeah, we focus all of our time and energy on equipping leaders and their teams, not just nurses too, because it's not just nurses. I always say, if you have humans working in your organization, you have a problem. We equip them with the knowledge, skills, tools, and confidence to finally address bullying and incivility in healthcare.
So can you give us the data around bullying and incivility that you see? And because you've been working in this space for 16 years, have you seen it change over that time? Has it gotten better?
Okay.
Is that a loaded question?
Yes and yes. First of all, we have so much data to support that bullying and incivility are present and the negative impact that it has on, you know, pretty much everything. And just a few of the studies that I like to share. One of them was from McKinsey. The McKinsey report came out a few years ago and basically said, you people have it all wrong. Burnout and turnover aren't caused from workload and compensation. They are caused from toxic workplaces. We know this. Somebody will leave an organization to go somewhere making less money if it's a better culture. Like, we know that. And then about a year and a half ago, the FAONL Joslin Insight study revealed that the number one factor impacting psychological safety is incivility. number one. And, psychological safety is a buzz phrase right now. We're all talking about the importance of it when it comes to safe patient care. Well, the number one factor is incivility. And I always think too, we're in a financial world right now, and I have always been, but it's really front and center, the financial constraints in especially healthcare. You look at the cost when bullying and incivility are ignored. Well, that cost, according to SHRM, is $2 billion a day. Now, that's in all industries. It's not just in healthcare. But, I say this all the time. Addressing this issue is not a nice to do. It's critically important that we all address this. And you asked the question that people ask me, a similar question all the time. Do I think it's getting worse? Or are we just better at reporting it? Because, years ago when I first started this, I will never forget this. I would be asked by an organization to come in and do a workshop on bullying. And they would say, don't use the word bullying. We don't want you to say that word. And I'm like, what? Like, wait a minute. I get it. But we have just, swept it under the rug. So we are more aware. And it is getting worse. And
That's
people
interesting.
say,
I would have thought it was getting better.
No, it's getting worse.
Yeah, interesting.
Well,
I guess I would have hoped it was getting better.
Well, Marion, I had hoped too. Okay, when the pandemic hit us and people were showing love and they were touting nurses as heroes and all that, I thought, oh, could this be my opportunity to say, check my checkbox? I have, there is no more bullying. People are actually being kind to each other now. Yay, I'll retire and spend more time with my grandkids. That was very short-lived, as we all know. And people have just gotten used to it being okay that we treat each other with cruelty. They say it's a reflection of our society. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm part of society. I'm not okay with that. But it really is getting worse. People where they would say things with their inside voice, they wouldn't really complain. Now they're saying it all with their outside voice and they're complaining constantly.
I think to your point, and I think I was even just watching something with Oprah recently, and she was saying the same thing, but it's just a fragment of society right now. Everybody seems to be much more divisive. There's a lot more people just are saying what's on their mind. They're not paying attention to the responses of what that impact has, or that they should be worried about an impact that it has. And I think what's really upsetting or really concerning is that nursing was a profession that has always been taught about compassion and empathy and really about caring for others. I don't think there was a single nurse that I've ever really met that became a nurse because they wanted to hurt people or they wanted to make a world worse. They became nurses because they had an internal drive and belief of helping and alleviating suffering of others, which is why I think we're so passionate about our profession, right? Is we see often some of the best of the world delivered by nurses. And I think what you're talking about, though, is it's not just nurses that are incivil. And I would love to dive in a little bit about nurses eating their young and what your opinion is on that. But I think you're talking about just the culture in healthcare also is really creating a really difficult place to remember that moment of compassion and humility and kindness across the board. So Renee, dive into what are you seeing? What is happening with nurses eating their young, and what is being done in these national narratives and organizations as they're trying to attack this?
Yes, you brought up a few really good points. We are incredibly compassionate, passionate, caring to our patients, but we don't always extend that same compassion to each other. And yes, nurses eat their young. We've been saying that for decades. And now I will tell you that the new nurses are still the most vulnerable. However, now the young are eating I'll say old. Okay, so it's well, then we eat our young, we eat our old, and we eat everything in between. And there are several reasons, I think, for that. None of them are justifiable. And I always look at when you have a new nurse, who starts working in your organization, those older nurses, and I'm going to call them experienced nurses. Okay. Those experienced nurses should be like, okay, girl, come on. I'm going to take you under my wing. I'm going to teach you how to be a better nurse than me. Because think about it. For every one of us who have been in nursing for a long time, shouldn't our goal be to leave a legacy and leave the profession better than when we found it? Okay. Help someone be better than we are. And instead, there's this competitiveness. If a new nurse starts citing, according to the Thunder study, blah, 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 then we go on attack. Like, who do you think you are? You have no idea. You don't have any experience. And instead of collaborating and supporting them and helping them to become better nurses, not all of us, okay? And I hope everyone who's listening or watching right now, we're not all like this.
We're not.
Okay.
And that is valid to say, right?
Yes.
I find it fascinating, one of the things you said about the younger new nurses sort of eating their experienced nurses. Is it that, or is it that this newer generation is more confident of their voice and their place in the world and what they will accept and what they won't accept, and that is taken as incivility or bullying? Because let me tell you, I have a 20-something-year-old, and she is a very strong, independent person. And I could see how some of the way that she presents herself could be taken as offense by someone else, but it's not. And so I wonder, especially with older generation nurses who, have been in this paternal healthcare system for a really long time, might be more sensitive to that.
Yes, really great point. It is both. I do see some of the newer nurses coming in, targeting some of the more experienced nurses, and lots of examples of that. Also, and this is something that we teach our newest nurses in some of the programs that we have, to address bullying and incivility, especially the new nurses, to protect them from, being bullied when they start their first job. But we teach them how to have conversations with the experienced nurses. And I'll just give you an example of something that I've recommended to them, is to say, hey, look, you've been here for 30 years, 40 years? I bet there's a lot that you can teach me that I didn't learn in school. Will you help me? So it's language on both ends, messaging. The experienced nurse is saying to the newer nurse, hey, you just got out of school. I bet you're up on all the latest evidence. If you ever see anything here that you don't think we're doing according to the evidence that you just learned, please tell us. So more of a collaborative. But that's not what's happening. What is happening is a new nurse maybe might say, well, according to the Thunder study, that's not evidence-based practice, and just be very direct. Where when I was a new nurse, I may have thought it, but I would have hey, I don't know, but I think I was more indirect. Now they're direct. An experienced nurse might find that, who do you think you are? Telling me what the evidence is. And it all starts with that intent when someone's new, to say, look, my intent is to help you to be a successful nurse here. And how are we going to work together, knowing that, sure, I've been a nurse here for, decades, you're brand new, but my goal is to help you to be even more successful than I have been as a nurse. But there are classic examples of some of the new nurses coming in and trying to put the experienced ones out to pasture. And that's, quote unquote, from some of the nurses who have shared their stories with me.
Hey nurses, looking for exclusive discounts? Nurse.org has you covered with deals on everything. Save big on the essentials you need to excel in your career. Don't miss out. Visit nurse.org/discounts for the latest discounts made just for you.
Wow. I mean, Renee, you know what? It's so funny. Not funny. It's just really interesting to hear you say this, because you hear it in passing. You don't see these things. These are not conversations or narratives that I think are happening in a lot of open nursing discussions or places. And I think, to your point, it's sort of the conversations that nursing leaders are having at the water cooler, or they're having in their breakout meetings. But it's not been front and center from a narrative perspective, in a way that I think, to your point, hasn't really coalesced around what are we going to do about it. The truth is, you can only do so many fragmented meetings, but it seems to me like we need a culture shift around this discussion. And I always find that and I think this is why Marion and I even started this podcast, was we need to shine the light on conversations that need to have lights put on them, and addressing more horrifically from a larger level of nursing. So from that perspective, Renee,
Yeah.
if you were to take a step back and saying, look, we go into institutions one-on-one, we do consulting, we do those things, and it lasts. We all know that it works for a period of time, but if it's not reinforced, things and behaviors are hard to maintain. So what does, in your mind, does the profession of nursing need to do at this moment to tackle what's going on between the age differences, the way we're training our young nurses, and how do we get back to a place of love and compassion? And to your point, where we're really good with patients, how do we take that training and try to change it back to each other?
Yeah.
Well, and I think before you answer that, I want to highlight one other thing. It's not just nurse to nurse.
No.
It can also be leader to subordinate. And so, I know
And
you
vice
nervous,
versa.
right. It's a cultural thing, a culture thing. And so if the nurse leaders are setting a culture of incivility, then where do you go? So to Rebecca's question, how do you handle all of that?
Yes. And it's not just nurse, whether it's, clinician and leader, it's physicians and respiratory and the executive team. I just had a conversation 2 days ago with someone who's like, yeah, our executive team is the problem. I'm like, oh, okay. And that's not uncommon. So there are a couple of things. We have some strategies that we know work when you implement them. And part of it is you need to, as much as I love getting in front of an audience and doing a workshop or a presentation on bullying, a workshop does not solve this problem. And I am at the point where I won't do it. If an organization says, even if they say, Renee, we'll pay you $1 million. Well, maybe I'd do it for $1 million, but it's not going to solve your problem. I don't want to take your money. It has to be more than that. So a couple of strategies that we know work and what needs to happen now in nursing. First of all, and beyond health, I'll just say healthcare. First of all, leaders are using silence as a strategy because they don't know what to say. They don't know how to say it. They're afraid. I cannot tell you how many leaders tell me if I speak up to that person, they will retaliate against me. If it's a unionized environment, they'll get their union delegate and I'll be in HR. I'll be in trouble. I'm like, come on, is that true? I'm telling you, that's what they say. And that's what we fight against. So we have to do a better job equipping leaders with the knowledge, skills, tools, and confidence to address these behaviors. Because when I was a frontline manager, I was new to the organization, new to leadership, and I'd never seen such toxic behaviors in my entire life, and I had no idea how to address them. I was the sixth manager in 6 years, and after 14 months, I became manager number 7. Couldn't do it. It was the worst experience of my life. However, in retrospect, it was the best experience because I wouldn't be doing this work in this way if I didn't have that experience. So you have to equip the leaders. And it can't just be the leaders. You have to empower the teams too to be a part of it. And then you have to have the support from the system level, okay? They have to have support from HR. If the manager goes to HR about an employee's behavior and HR says, well, have you coached them? Have you counseled them? How many times? 5 times? Oh, that's not, you need to counsel them 15 times before we can. Okay, so they need to get the support from HR. However, I want to give a shout out to HR because, HR is the one who reaches out to us a lot for help. And this is what I hear from their perspective. A manager barges into their office demanding that they approve a corrective action or termination. HR will say, I've never heard that there was a problem with this employee. There's not a shred of documentation. And when I look back at their performance reviews, 15 years, they had meets or exceeds expectations. So how am I supposed to? Okay, so there's definitely a disconnect there, and we work on that. You have to equip leaders. You have to involve the teams, and we do that. You have to strengthen your organization. It's all part of our framework. But here's on boots on the ground, you have to start engaging in conversations about behavior. We don't do that. Every single organization we go into, they talk about clinical process, they talk about operations, but they're not having conversations about, is gossip happening here? How many times do the employees go to the boss and tattle on their coworkers instead of going to their coworker first and having a direct, honest, and respectful conversation. So you have to start by raising awareness and engage your team in conversations about culture, about behavior. I'm going to give everybody who's listening our number one strategy. And this, when we talk about how do you sustain it, this sustains it. I would add healthy workforce as a standing agenda item in every meeting. And it gives you space and permission to talk about culture, talk about behavior. And then one of our other strategies is you have to set behavioral expectations as a team. You know, we do a good job setting performance expectations, but we don't talk about how we're supposed to treat each other in that department. So we do an activity where we bring the whole team together. Physicians, APPs, if respiratory spends more time in your department than in their department, we invite them. And we ask, how do you always want to be treated by each other? How do you never want to be treated? And then we form a compact, and we don't make them sign it. It is just adult professionals saying, this is how we behave. And then finally, you have to engage them in ongoing skill development, because if I have it on this compact that we talk to each other, not about each other, and we give each other feedback. And the last time I gave you feedback, you ripped my head off. What makes you think now that you have it on a piece of paper, I'm going to do that? You have to teach people. So it's skill development. Okay. Those are 3. Well, I probably gave you 6 sort of strategies, but that'll get you started.
So, you know, all of this, these gems and words of wisdom, I feel like those could potentially maybe be in a book you've written.
Yes, indeed.
Want to share your newest?
So, I wrote a book for frontline leaders, okay? Because remember, I was a frontline leader and failed miserably and didn't want another leader to feel like a failure like I did. So that book is called Enough, Eradicate Bullying and Incivility, Essential Skills for, Healthcare Leaders. And it came out last year. It's my second version, so the second edition. I thought about writing a new book, and then I thought, wait a minute, this book is really good. I get a lot of great feedback, and it's simple. It's easy reading. Like, there are no p-values in there, okay? It's just simple reading. But I wrote it before the pandemic, and a lot has changed. So I adapted it to consider a post-pandemic, healthcare world. But yeah, my chapter 1 is my story of when I was that frontline manager, and then I give all my strategies. Yeah, simple strategies.
Simple is always the best because they can
Right?
be applied and they're actionable, Renee. And I think that taking very complex, there's a famous quote by someone who I cannot recall, that the best experts in the room are those who can take very complex subjects and make them very easy and simple to understand. Because otherwise, there's no way that you can actually educate and train others to be successful. So I love this, and I can't wait to read this. Marion, I'm turning it back over to you.
Yeah, I'll just say I really appreciate you sharing your time and, again, your knowledge and expertise, because this is a really important area that gets a lot of attention, but as you said, hasn't gotten any better, and it should. I mean, nurses aside, humans aside, like, we all have to work together, especially in healthcare. It's hard enough. And so why do we want to make it even harder on ourselves and each other? I have your button that says be kind. So, like,
it shouldn't be that hard.
Going in, right. It shouldn't be that hard. And everything you've said the whole time, I'm like, this is common sense. Like, it feels like common, like, courtesy, common sense. We should just, like, be kind to each other. Again, it's hard enough. So thank you for sharing this with us. Any last parting wisdom for our listeners?
Yes. I will share one more thing. There are 3 parties to every, I would say, bullying or incivility incident. And I'm going to call them the bully in this context, but I don't like to label people bullies. It's a behavior, not a person. But let's just say the bully, the target, the person who's, they're targeting, and the witness. The most powerful person in that triad is the witness. So here's what I want everybody to do. If you see that something is happening, somebody's being treated cruelly by somebody else, say something. Say something to that bully. But guess what? If you're afraid, it's okay. Say something to the target. Even text them. Say, hey, I saw what happened. Not okay. Are you okay? Do you want to talk about it? or say something to somebody in an authority role. But we have to stop using silence as a strategy. We need to start speaking up, or it'll never go away.
Couldn't agree more. Rebecca and I are all about encouraging nurses to use their voices for all things big and small. So thank you, Renee, for all the work you've done. Really appreciate it.
Renee, honestly, silence is not a strategy. Avoidance is not the other. So keep using your voices, nurses. Renee, such a pleasure to see you and have you on our podcast. And we can't wait to see everything and the positive impact you continue to make on the nursing workforce.
Well, thank you. Happy to be here and happy to share anything I can to make the world a better, kinder place.
Thanks for listening to the Love and Leary podcast. We hope this conversation sparked new ideas, challenged your thinking, and reminded you of the power nurses have to lead change.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it. You can find more episodes and join the conversation wherever you do your podcast listening.